Hello and welcome to NARC Live on Wednesday the 12th of January 2022, coming to you live from Norfolk on the east coast of England with Tammy M0TC.
Hello.
And me, David G7URP. Good to see you. On tonight's show, IT for the radio amateur with our very own Bob G6PWS. We find out how the NARC Morse team made it big to broadcast radio this week. And we find out what on earth this is. But first, back to that headline story on Morse. Yes, you heard it right. If you were listening to the Radio Norfolk yesterday morning at about 10 minutes to 8, you would have heard someone very familiar on the airwaves. But first, before we replay that, we've had kind permission from the BBC to replay it to you in its entirety. We want to just tell you a little bit of the background story. Because what actually happened was that on Monday, our own treasurer, Mark G0LGJ, had a phone call from BBC Radio Norfolk to ask him if he'd written a book on Morse code. He said, no, of course not. But I know a man who has. So that led Mark to giving the BBC Roger's phone number, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Excuse the plane, sorry.
Excuse the plane, yes, if you can hear that, that's very loud. Anyway, let's hear now what went out on Radio Norfolk yesterday morning, bright and early, about 10 to 8, as I said. And you can watch it on, you can listen to it again, by the way, on Catch Up yourself as well, but we're going to play it now.
What weird and wonderful day can we find to Mark today? Well, we could end up speaking to somebody that we don't usually speak to. That's what this part of the programme is all about. On the list of the days of the year for the 11th of January was Girl Hug Boy Day, Secret Pal Day, and Step in a Puddle and Splash Your Friends Day. But that's all a bit mainstream for us. So today we are celebrating Learn Your Name in Morse Code Day. So we got in touch with the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club to find out if they could help. And it turns out a man in Norfolk has literally written the book on it. He's called Roger Cook. He's from Swardston and is the author of Morse Code for Radio Amateurs. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning.
I feel like I should be speaking to you in dots and dashes on this of all days, but welcome. How useful is Morse Code in 2022? Who still uses it?
Well, mostly radio amateurs, of course, and all over the world. But for normal businesses and other practices like shipping, they've long since given up Morse Code because they've got better communication methods like satellites. But amateurs use Morse Code virtually every day.
And do you still love it? Are you a bit sad that it's dying out as a communications tool?
Well, in that respect, yes, but the radio amateurs still use it, so I'm quite happy, really. There are thousands of those all around the world, and this is an ideal hobby, really, to get into because of the COVID situation. We have friends to speak to every day and don't feel isolated at all. Yes, the amateurs use it every day, and we love Morse Code. I've been teaching it since I was first licensed in 1956. So wow. You can tell how long ago that is.
But because you have to, with the dots and the dashes, you have to spell out every letter. Does it take a long time to share a message with somebody? Do you have to be? Is brevity the key to it?
Brevity and abbreviations. You have to learn all the abbreviations, the protocol, procedural signals, and you of course have to learn the Morse code itself. You can't do that in a weekend or even in a week. It will take you 9 months to a year to become a proficient operator. But the big P word comes into being there, practice. It's like learning a musical instrument. I mean, I learned the piano since I was 5. And to be proficient at that, you have to put in lots and lots of practice. So Morse code is the same thing. And providing you do the practice, you can become a proficient operator. We have 5 tutors in Norwich, actually, one of whom you must know pretty well, Jim Bacon.
Oh, wow, yes. I didn't know that. I didn't know he was a Morse code expert. How many students have you got coming through there? How many people are keen to learn?
Well, we've got about 15 students through in the last few years, and we still have a pool of newcomers coming along, but not that many. Obviously, about 3 or 4 to each class, and that's nice. We also have a Club MorseNet every Monday evening on the air, where we can teach there and protocol on net procedure, And yeah, it's all rather fun. We have contests on the air, and people organise de-expeditions to rare places around the world and communicate via Morse code principally.
That's amazing. Roger, today is Learn Your Name in Morse Code Day. So what is Chris in Morse Code? Because that's my name.
Well, you have to learn dots and dashes in the form of dits and dars, Chris.
Okay, go on then.
You can forget dots and dashes. So your name would be dar-di-dar-di, di-di-di-di, di-dar-di, di-di-di-di-di. And it would sound like this. That's your name in Morse code.
That's brilliant, Roger. Thank you for doing that. We'll have to. Can we turn that into a jingle, Tim?
Oh yeah, we should do, shouldn't we?
My name in Morse code. Roger, lovely to talk to you. Roger Cook, a Morse code expert. If you want to find out more, go to norfolkamateurradio.org. Now, I thought we could have a bit more fun with Learn Your Name in Morse Code Day.
Okay.
So I hope this is right, because I've used a thing online where you can put a word in and they can translate it for you into Morse code. Dars and dits, we've got to say.
Okay.
So I've found, because it's Learn Your Name in Morse Code Day, I've done a Norfolk place name in Morse code.
Oh, okay.
And you looked at the running order now, so you can see what the answer is.
Accidentally, I just looked at it.
So which Norfolk place do our listeners think this is in Morse code? No?
Okay.
A Norfolk place name in Morse code.
Place name Morse code.
I'm hoping that's right. I've had my name in Morse code, so that was one that I found online where you don't have. I know I feel bad doing that in front of Roger because it's cheating, not having learnt it properly,
it is cheating,
just being able to translate it. But that should be a Norfolk place name in Morse code. Can anyone get it from that?
Do you want to Norfolk.
Should I do it again?
We better give it again. Yeah,
let's do it again. Is that the sort of thing that might set dogs off, do you think? I'm sure listeners will tell us.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see.
0800 389 7321 for your Morse code guesses on that one. You can text 81333, start your message with the word Norfolk. We got WhatsApp, but people can't Morse code us, can they?
No, they can't,
answers, unfortunately. Now we'll do that in the next part of the programme. We'll see whether anyone can work out which Norfolk place name that was as we mark Learn Your Name in Morse Code today here on Chris Gorham at Breakfast. What a pleasure to speak to Roger. That was great.
On the BBC Sounds app.
There you go. That's what you missed if you didn't listen to Radio Norfolk yesterday morning about 10 to 8. In all seriousness, I mean, it's a bit of fun, but it's great to promote the hobby, great to promote Morse, and I think Roger did really well, and I mean that sincerely. So it was an excellent interview, and thanks very much for doing that for the hobby, Roger.
We've had a guess what the place name was.
Were we allowed to say that? Well, it had, I think, even I worked out it had 4 letters. Does anybody know? If you want to have a go and you're not Morse proficient at this, Stuart has already put something on BATC, so I guess you'll know.
Am I allowed to say when we were driving in the car, I did guess it, because I knew what the first and last one were, because they were easy. So I guessed the middle two.
Yeah. See? New student for you, Roger, Jim, everybody. All right. And we actually had a comment as well from James JGX. I guess that's your call sign, James. I'm not sure what the prefix is. My uncle David Woodward used to do a stint on Radio Norfolk. I used to love going to the studios. I think that's where my love of tech started. Yeah, I did some of my early work on radio there at Radio Norfolk. Norfolk Tower. It was near the bus station, I think. Something like that. Anyway, thank you very much, James, for that. So, we've got another one here. Paul Brooks says he thinks he knows it. Well, I'm sure he knows it because he's one of the tutors. Let me see, anybody else? Well, we'll tell you, just to put you out of your misery or put it out of
Morse misery.
Morse misery. It's ACLE. And he, of course, being in Norfolk, we can say that. So if anybody not looking this in Norfolk, it's spelled ACLE and is pronounced by most people.
ACLE.
Is it? Is that the Norfolk way?
Yeah,
Is that the way your dad and
ACLE
brother would say
sail.
it? ACLE sail. All right. I'll say ACLE because that's the way I was brought up and where I went to school. Anyway, ACLE. Thank you very much again. Well done to Roger. That's about all the news we had this week. So thank goodness he did that, because otherwise we wouldn't have much to tell you. So don't forget to keep in touch with us. Send us your stories and things that you've seen, things that you've done during the week. We'd love to see that as well. This is the address to send it to, radio@dcpmicro.com by 3 o'clock on a Wednesday. And usually it'll make the show. Some weeks we have lots, like last week, and I think we'd sometimes even have to pass things over to the following week. But this week that was the only story that really hit us, except we did have this picture coming in now from Tom, GAXQD. Mom, is there really such a thing as a perfect man? Of course, dear. They're called ham radio operators. Did I do that all right?
Yeah, very well.
I don't know where you got that from, Tom, but maybe write it yourself, because this certainly can't imagine that being in any book, really. Anyway, thank you very much
Is it
indeed.
like one of those Ladybird book things?
Well,
like
maybe.
one of those.
Well, they'd have that in there. I think that's
You
been edited.
can buy birthday cards now with lots of things like that on. I saw one
Okay.
in the shop the other day, like how to be a good husband. Can't even speak. Husband and things like
and what
that.
was the answer?
I don't know. I didn't look at it. I don't have to be a good husband.
I rest my
do I?
case. Right, you're going to give me that for my birthday and I'll try my best. But meantime, back to Tammy for Little People.
Little People, here you go. We were talking about computers tonight, so I thought I'd delve into the computer archive. So this is called a... I can't remember what it was called now. I've forgotten.
Well, it's a motherboard, isn't it?
It's a subway, basically, a subway
okay.
station.
Yeah.
So people going through the barriers. There was a couple of more pictures to this, but I thought this one was pretty good.
They're the edge connector sockets, aren't they?
Yeah.
And things on their little battery there. It is good, though, isn't it? It's the way it just puts some little people with it and suddenly it turns it into something completely different.
Completely different, doesn't it?
As always, miniature-calendar.com if you want to see more of those. There's one every day and Tammy picks one for us every week. Thank you. So as I said, please keep in touch with what you're doing. We've sent lots of stuff after Christmas, but we didn't have much this week, so we'd love to hear from you. It's about, whether it's about your hobby, about radio or something else, don't forget to let us know. Anyways, back to the competition this week, and we set one last week. I really wasn't sure, and I admit I didn't know what this was. Tammy didn't know what this was as well. Let's have a look at the picture that we showed you last week. What on earth is this?
Can I say what I thought it was? Can I throw my guess in there?
You can, although yeah.
I wasn't right.
No, you weren't right, but maybe other people will get it. Say the same thing as you did. That's what I think
okay,
you did.
fair enough.
That's why I'm being a little bit hesitant. I think the people should speak. So let's have a look and see all the answers that we got. And we got a steady flow of answers. Steve G3 EVA says this week's What on Earth is This? Is a 35mm film camera rangefinder.
Ken M0KJW and Shirley G0ZAA. I think this week's entry is a photographic rangefinder used before the days of autofocus cameras.
Donard M0KRK says it's a Minox spy camera. My girlfriend in university had one and used to prepare her own film so that it was in excess of 2000 ASA. This way she could sit in a dark pub and photograph her friends sitting nearby. She would then develop, print and distribute the results. It was most impressive. Don't I? Do you know what? I have to worry a bit about if I had a girlfriend like that who had this spy camera. That just seems... Anyway, that's your answer. Thank you very much. I love the detail in that.
Yeah. Peter G4PNF says a photographic distance rangefinder.
Kev M0KKM said the latest object looks like a rangefinder thingy for older SLR cameras. I am sure someone will tell us how it could be adapted to fit on a domestic fabric joining machine. Oh, I see where you're going there.
Okay. John G0MXN, I think the object is a small camera. Years ago sold as spy cameras.
Yeah, that's what I wondered that as well. I must admit that was isn't that what you said, by the way? What you thought it was?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, all right then. Well, you tell us yours in a minute then. Where do we get to then?
Colin.
Okay, Victor G3JMB.
No, Colin. We haven't said Colin.
Oh, okay, all right. Colin M0GMK says this week's mystery object is a rangefinder for a camera. We used a similar device in the 1960s.
Victor G3JMB, is this a rangefinder for a camera or a tripod?
Nigel G8IFF says it's a photographer's rangefinder for measuring distance between subject and camera.
Paul G3VPT, guess 1, is it a film camera? Guess 2, is it a camera rangefinder or exposure meter?
Can we allow him 2 guesses?
Yeah, we'll allow him 2 guesses.
All right. Mark G0GJ says, I think it's a rangefinder used in photography.
Paul 2E0NXL, hi, I think what it is... I can't even read now. I think what it is could be a micro camera, like a spy camera from the 60s or 70s. Had a little tiny film cartridge in it. Keep up the good work.
Neil Bowers says it's a Wattmeter rangefinder manufactured by Edmund Watteler in Germany. It attaches to old-style cameras and allows the focus to be set properly without any guesswork.
I like the fact that you just missed a word out of the script there because you couldn't pronounce it.
Okay then, Mrs. Pronunciation, come on.
Braunschweig. I should think that is.
Not bad.
Braunschweig, Germany. You can say the next one now.
Thanks. I wrote the script as well. Mike, G-A-E-Y, says, today's item is a Wattmeter super camera auxiliary rangefinder. It possesses features almost no other rangefinders of the era had, such as the internal distance scale, which appears on the left-hand side of the viewfinder window. The beauty of this scale is that the user can immediately see the distance without having to lower the camera from their eye. And before we go into what it is,
have we had John 2E0 TWQ says, is it part of a sewing machine?
No, it isn't. We've passed that. No, it's definitely not. We haven't heard from Nev this week, actually.
No.
Maybe he couldn't think.
Maybe.
What did you think it was, Tammy, before we reveal what it is?
I was looking at it because I could see on the top of the dial there, like 26, 28, 30, 32. I thought it was something to do with temperature.
Yeah? Okay. I tell you, also reminds me, and this is probably well before your time, and just remind me how old I am every time I do something like this. In the old days on the buses, they used to, the bus conductor used to have the conductor used to have a ticket machine around their waist.
Oh yeah.
And it had a thing just like that thing on the top where you move it round to put the fares.
All right.
And then press a button and the ticket came out. Yeah. Anyway, let's reveal exactly what it was, because it was
a Wattmeter.
A rangefinder for cameras that used guess focusing.
A rangefinder for cameras that used guess focusing. That was what Ken, who sent it in,
In fact, he says it's confusingly called the Wattmeter. It's a rangefinder for cameras that uses guess focusing and was probably made in the 1950s. He's the one who submitted this, by the way. It says Ken GM4JMU. It uses a split image that is fused using the knob looking through a small viewfinder. When the two images superimpose, you read the distance and set it on the camera lens. Cameras like the Leica and some others had rangefinders built in. Incredible to think now that was not, autofocus wasn't a thing built into them. But there we are. That's exactly what it was. I did Photoshop a little bit of the stuff out, the Wattmeter bit as well, from the original picture that we put on there. But thanks to everybody who's entered. Obviously, lots of you knew what it was. I didn't know what it was. I would have guessed a spy camera or something to do with this ticket machine. Anyway, and well done to all of you for entering. So, Tammy, are you going to help us reveal what on earth we have this week? So what on earth is this? Do you have any idea what this gadget, tool, widget, whatever is, or what it's for? I'll let you have a look at it for a little bit longer, but as always, we'll put this on our Facebook page and on the Norfolk Amateur Radio Club website and on our newsletter. And you've got until 3 o'clock next Wednesday at the absolute latest to let us know what you think that is or what it's for. radio@dcpmicro.com. Well, there we are. We're nearly up to our main event tonight. But before that, just a look at what's happening at the club this week. On Sunday, the 16th of January, we've got the GB2RS news on the repeater GB3MB at 7 o'clock. On Monday, the 17th of January at 7:30, we've got the Monday Night Net with host Tim M1MIT. And at 8:30, we've got the 80-metre CW net on 3.543 megahertz. And next Wednesday here on NARC Live, we've got a talk by Kevin Nassan, N4XL, on ferrites and ballons. I think that will go really nicely, if you think about the talk we had, the lovely talk by Ian on the filters. Obviously the key part of that with the ferrites. So I think to have now a talk from Kevin about that next week will be really good. And just actually, while I mention that sort of thing, in 2 weeks tonight, so not next week, but 2 weeks tonight, we're going to have one of our social interactives, which we do every month. This is the last one of the month, and it will be all about the antenna matching, whether it's an ATU or obviously the ideal way is to make an antenna that matches the radio, so you don't need an ATU. So antenna matching, that's what that's all going to be about, and it's about you taking part in that. So if you've got anything that you'd like to include on that and come online, as well on the Zoom call and to be live. Show us any antenna tuning units that you've maybe made over the years or other ways of matching an antenna to a radio. That's what we'll be looking at. Once a month we'd say we're going to do this in the shack, which enables us, all of us, to learn a little bit more about what we can do to improve our shacks and how it works. But it does depend on you to contribute to that. So if you've got any pictures of anything you'd like to send, you can send it in advance, or of course you can show us live on the night on the Zoom call. That's in a couple of weeks' time. And a reminder, obviously, apart from letting us know what your week's been going like and your news and everything else, we do send this card out to anybody on request who you ask for. We've sent one this week. Just send us a note of the name and address of the person you want to send to. We'll add your name to ours and we'll post it out immediately. Thank you. So now on to tonight's main event. And I'm delighted to say that having asked for many, many weeks and months now for some of you, our members, to contribute with a talk, one of our members, Bob, G6PWS, has offered to give us a talk tonight all about IT. But before we go on to that, a little while ago, Bob sent us some information about his background. He doesn't know, he's watching this, but he doesn't know that we're actually going to use this. So we're going to tell you a bit about what Bob did before he became involved with education. So he sent us this. Before I went into education, I was an international truck driver, a truck owner-driver for 15 years, from 1969 until 1984. He wears well, doesn't he?
He does.
So here are a few pictures from my lorry driving days. Now this is the key bit. Look at this here, or this is some of his driving. This next bit, Tammy. Can we have a look at the next picture? Look at that. That just looks like something that's been made up.
I'm not sure I'd even want to take a car on that.
No. Do you remember the Pixar film Cars?
I thought you were going to say James Bond.
No,
That's
well,
like the thing where he was going around like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, James Bond would be like that. But
sorry about the helicopter.
we have got a lot of air activity tonight. Yeah, it reminded me of the Pixar film Cars. Anyway, that looks impressive enough. But look at this. Whilst in Moscow, waiting at customs for our agent to appear to collect our paperwork to take to customs to clear for unloading, they translated and we paid our dues. Suddenly, we were surprised by this Fiat, which came along and came to a quick stop against the high curb. No brakes, that is it, apparently. We'll ask Bob in a minute. Notice the slick tyres. Tyres will be the least of my worries, I think, with that. This was our agent, he says. Wow. He reckoned that because times were hard, he was using a cheaper car to run. Unbelievable. The gas bottle in the passenger footwell, this is the bit I love most, was connected to his carburettor and was used as a cheap fuel supply. And this was in 1978. Can you believe that? Do you think he's got an MOT? I don't think so. We'll ask him in a minute. Anyway, when Bob sold out from his truck driving business, he took up his hobby of computer systems in his career, joining Hertfordshire County Council on the IT net for the county schools. And that's why Bob's here tonight, to give us this talk on IT for the radio amateur. So without further ado, let's meet him. Bob!
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. Yeah, good to see you, and thank you again for volunteering to give us this talk. So just before we move on to that, though, that car, was that really on the road?
Yes. Yeah. He came flying up the road. That's my truck in the background, the red one. We sat there waiting, and he was supposed to turn up. We didn't know where to go. And then all of a sudden it come roaring up. No exhaust neither, and it was really making a good noise, and come to a dead stop against it.
I mean,
out he got.
I mean, when you sent those words to me, it's just before Christmas, I think, when we talked about this. And there's your truck there, is it on the red, the red one behind you?
Yeah, that's it.
But when you sent it to me, and I read the words, and I thought, well, it can't be this car, because this is like just a crash, just a write-off. But I cannot believe that he drove that around.
Yeah, in the end, he then backed away and then turned around and went down to the office. And about 4 o'clock, that was about 10 o'clock in the morning, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he come back with all our paperwork, cleared customs.
Heavens above.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's almost a story in itself, but we better get back to what the subject that we've asked you to talk to us about tonight, and that is about IT. That was your second career, as it were, was it?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So we've got a presentation from you tonight. We, as always now at times like this on our programme, you can ask questions live. Either ask them during or straight after the talk of Bob, and we'll read them to him. Either during the talk if we think it's best to read them then, or we'll do it straight afterwards. So if you've got any questions or points or anything about IT for radio amateurs in particular, where Bob has sort of made this talk suit that radio amateurs in particular. But I'm going to hand back to Bob now, and we'll look forward to your presentation, Bob.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening all. The picture on the mountainside, that's Mont Cenis, going up from Suza, going across to Modane in France. So instead of going through the Mont Blanc, you go across the top. Anyway, we'll get started. But this is a basic introduction for IT. Anyway, we'll get started. Hello, what's happening now? This is a basic introduction for IT. Anyway, we'll get started.
I think, Bob, if you are listening to this on something else...
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Well, it's not coming from us, I don't think.
No, I could hear myself then.
Okay.
It echoed.
That's right, that's a delay. If you have got anything, though, watching the live stream or anything, then I'd switch that off because that's going to confuse you. Okay.
No, I haven't. I've only got mine. I've got PowerPoint one side and this the other side.
All right.
Anyway, we'll go again. Right, in this talk, we will basically define what information and understand the four methods representing and conveying information. So, describe some important historical milestones in recording and exchanging of this information. Explain what technical topics are included in the field of information technology. Describe the role in which information technology plays in the modern day society, and how it can and does help amateurs. First of all, defining information. Information, is not really just straightforward. It's a fact or facts that carry a meaning. Basically, the value of these facts strongly depends on the context of it. Examples of information, quite simple, spam. You get that sent to you on emails and stuff like that. 999 or 111 emergency calling. There's information going across. Air traffic control map. It's showing the air traffic controllers where the aircraft are and stuff like that. Your text messages, which is where it comes from spam. Sports results. It's information, and also your logbooks. Most amateurs now have got logbooks electronically. It's much easier than writing it out. I know because I can remember my logbook. I lost it in a nice bucket of water during a field day, and of course that was it, gone. Couldn't get it back again. Anyway, what counts as information? If you look here, this is just some of the items which I can pick out. Home videos, the 111 calls, laws, business transaction, financial data, religious text, names, songs, product orders, batting average, weather conditions, all that sort of on there is information coming to you from different sources. So therefore, the route to representing information has not changed really for centuries, is it? You know what I mean? It's the same thing. You've got a spoken word, which is what we're doing now. You've got text, which is writing. And you've got pictures, which we all know quite well. And of course, don't forget your numbers. Although text and that all sort of seem to. But today, the information technologies websites still represent information with text, images, including video, numbers and sound. How historically have humans conveyed this? Let's go round and have a look. How old do you reckon this is? Images from a cave dwelling, text from hieroglyphics from the Egyptians, sound, his master's voice, and the numbers. Who invented one of them? Very, very, easy to use once you know how to use it. Then we go to images. Images that we had, they come in lots of different formats, And since like 75,000 BC, around, they don't know exactly, but rock carvings. Then it come to the Egyptians with paintings. Photography started in 1835. Silent movies in 1895. Television developing 1940. Cable TV come out 65. 1990 we started getting digital photography being a lot more available to the open market rather than just being for the most expensive for the rich. DVDs come out, and then of course you went to the video phones. So sound. If you remember the spoken word, well, when did that start? you know, Uggs and Ogs when they were out hunting or whatever. You know what I mean? You just don't know when actually they started putting words together to get the context right. Oral histories come out. 1876, the telephone was developed. 1876, phonograph. 1922, started with radio broadcast. 1954, got the transistor radios. 1980s was the start of the development of the little cell phones that you could get. I can remember a big brick that I had that cost me like nearly £2,000 and a day sitting in Newmarket having this telephone fitted to my truck. And it would only work in England. Whenever I went abroad, it never worked. So really, to me, it ended up as a complete waste of time. But it was a massive unit sitting in the truck. So yeah, in 1983, CDs started coming out. And then all of a sudden, we got voice recognition software and then the MP3 files. Alphanumeric. Again, you start off with Prius. Can't get that word right. That I reckon goes back to 2200 BC, 4000 BC hieroglyphics, 1450 started with the printing press, and I thought I'd include the Morse key down there.
I think you better, Bob.
Yeah, for the telegraph. You know that started 1840, and 1894 was the wireless telegraph, which started getting people at the voice going down the wireless line. Fax machines come out. Also, with the fax machine come the teleprinters, which was really first. They came out, and which is where the ASCII code comes from that computers use. And then all of a sudden, the Apple home computer come out. They took over the world, didn't they? And in 81, what I struck my teeth on, the IBM PC. I started with a company and we were using the IBM Type 1s, which was swap out modules. Very, very simple to use, very, very simple to do and repair. So that's what I did. Then, of course, developed the email and the web and text messaging come out for everybody, didn't it? That made life a lot easier. And when you look at the speed and scope of the information, what's changed is the speed and the scope of information technologies. Consider what you can do in an hour now, especially on the internet. You can sit there, you could check out videos on YouTube, you could watch them, do lots of things with them, and go. You move around and you can make 2 cell phone calls within an hour, as if you're going to be on the phone half an hour, as long as you've got all the time in the world to do it. You can download a document that you found on the internet after searching. You can download a document and read it, and save it, print it out. You can exchange several text messages with friends. Nowadays, if you get WhatsApp or anything like that, you can use it on the computer, as long as your phone's nearby, and you can sit there and type in on your computer and talk to people wherever. They also, when you get you can book anything. You can book, as I say, I've got here an airline reservation for a break or a trip, but you can book anything. You can buy stuff from God knows what else. You can consult a news source, which is a lot of people. I know a lot of people. They sit down and they've got the BBC news coming through on their computer. And one of the shortcuts on their Internet Explorer or Chrome or whatever is for the BBC. Download a music file. Well, you can do that. You don't even have to download it nowadays. You can just sit and listen to it all day long. As long as you log in, give yourself a login name and address so that you can get whatever you want. You can search for music and stuff like that and listen to it all day long. Electronic library systems, not so much nowadays. This was sort of going back to the 90s when you could book your library book and you can reserve it, but nowadays you can just read it online. Why? Myself personally, I think it's ruining our library system, but there's lots of people still go there, and most of the universities use them and stuff like that. You can check on the day's sports scores. Not that I'm 100% interested in the day's sports. Like, I don't know what that team did in Australia. Was it yesterday or today or something like that? But I'm not going to say no more about that, but you can check on that. Online gaming. Now then, how many have got kids that just sit there with their self glued to it? And, you can't get them out of their bedroom. I've got my grandson. He sort of lives in his bedroom now. He's 14. He's at the age where gaming with all his mates is much better than sitting down watching TV, which is 9 times out of 10 rubbish. The last thing, you can make new contacts, and you know where you're making them from. You can, on the radio, you can use your PC for a radio contacts and stuff like that. So, defining information technologies. Information technologies are systems of hardware and or software that capture, process and exchange, store and present information using electrical, magnetic or electromagnetic energy. That sounds good, doesn't it? But that's all it is basically. That's all it is in a computer. And it downloads a file that it then transfers and it puts it up on the screen, displays it on a screen. That's a very good technology. You've also got, let me go over here, technologies meeting this definition range, digital cameras, internet radio, to corporate computer networks. Most big companies, even when I was out on the field as an engineer, I went to quite a lot of the insurance companies. They have massive IT rooms full of hard drives. One I used to go do down in Southampton, and they had a room that had 15 banks of 100 SCSI hard drives, and they were all raided in to their mainframes. And the reason I was down there is because we were cabling up to put on satellite stations. So out in the field where they got an office in, say Manchester, that could talk to the server all the time, be connected to, so they can check up and do whatever they got to do and everything. 3 examples of information technologies that can capture, process, exchange, store and present this information to you, how you want to see it. It's so simple. You've got one, most people have it, your cellular, your little phone. You carry it around in your pocket and you can talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere. Quite a lot of people have it and they use it to access the internet. Lots of other, sort of things you can do with it, as well as text. You don't have to talk to them. You can just text them, but it's information coming over. Then you get wireless internet access, because with your telephones, you can connect to a wireless router, and therefore then you can then use whatever you can get on the internet. No problems at all. And last but least, but it comes with all of us, our transceiver radios. You're using them to two-way conversation. I can remember when I first started the FRG listening. It was great, but then you had to whet your appetite. You're thinking, why can't I talk to that person? I'd like to talk to that person, which is then why I went into radios. one of the main reasons I went into radio, first of all, was because in the trucking, and I used to drive out to Saudi Arabia, and if you're traveling 2 or 3 of you, it's nice in a sort of convoy, especially going across the desert, to talk to the bloke 1/4 mile in front of you or the bloke behind you or stuff like that, to keep in contact. And, in case anything happens, you can say, right, let's pull up for a cup of chai or something like that, and no problems at all. So to us, the radios were perfect sort of thing. Here we go with the cellular, your cell phone. This is like you're talking on your phone. It's captured by an antenna. That's taken through off the antenna, goes to the call net base station, goes up into the iClouds, into the clouds, through their telephone system, comes out onto another base station, back to an antenna, bang, onto your cell phone. Isn't that easy? It sounds so easy and so good, but of course, go back into the 70s when it's first being developed. Nobody wanted a great big antenna like that sitting in their back garden. All they wanted was to be able to use a phone, but, we don't want all the infrastructure. So there was a hell of a lot of battles some places. A lot of farmers were coerced into putting them up into their places, which is good because it happened. But now they're all over the place and you can't really stop them going up. It's one of the things that you need to have to get your telephone working. Then we can go over onto the wireless internet access. This is a little bit more, as you can see, you've got a laptop, you've got your access point. So your laptop is talking wirelessly to your access router. That router then goes out. Now, whether it's via cable, whether it's for the telephone line, out it goes to the internet, is sorted out and ends up on a web server because you're looking at web pages and stuff like that. And that gives you your text, your numbers, your images and your sounds, comes over onto your screen and it presents the information and it's conveyed by your web browser. So you can keep in touch with lots of bits and pieces. And then we come back down the third one, transceiver radios. Computers can be used to interface with ham radios anytime to allow the use of programs for contacting other hams and the logging of these contacts. This is what I think is a sort of my typical installation. As you can see, it's you've got the internet coming into the computer then you provide USB, or it used to be COM ports, don't forget the old COM ports, that interfaced with your control interface that then went to your transceiver. But now it's USB control and then a CAT control line from that controller onto your transceiver. The rest of it's quite simple, the power supply, and it goes up to the antenna system. Now, on the bottom left-hand side, you can see there's a dedicated phone line comes into a DTMF controller. Now, it's connected to phone line only if needed. This is really, you've got to have it, because if your computer loses control of the radio and you need to shut everything down and start over. So the DTMF is the dual tone multi-frequency. This is when you lift your phone up and you start pressing the keys and out it goes and you can hear the tones generated. This is transported over the voice control, and that's used to control any sort of automated equipment. Used widely in click the wrong screen, but never mind. Click widely in the business environment, not so much. But if you do want to run a station like this, you should really have one of them in place in case of, because if you've got that as a in your shack as a automatically running station that you can control from, say, your phone, your iPhone or your smartphone, you need to be able to get to it to shut it down if anything goes wrong. It's part of your licensing. And it says if you set up your station at home but want to operate it, the controlling software can run on a laptop. So you can use it, your rig from a hotel room, coffee shop, or out in the field. A smartphone or tablet computer connected to your data network can be good enough to do this, which it is. I know for a fact because I use one. Regardless of how you do it, there are some rules about remote control operation, such as being able to shut down the station if necessary. That's what I'm saying about this DTMF controller. Being licensed in the location of your station is one of the things that's necessary, and identifying your station properly. Otherwise, it's pretty much like operating a regular station, but with really long keyboard, mouse, and microphone cords. You know, you can stretch it as far as you like, can't you, that way? Remote operating has become much more popular over the last few years. The technology to make this work is widely available now. Radios themselves are easy to control over the internet, and commercial products are appearing that provide plug-and-play operation. You have the option of building a traditional home station and able to operate it whenever and wherever you are. So beyond hardware considerations for the ham radio computers, beyond the computation-intensive application, such as antenna modelling or CAD, computer-aided design, you don't need to have the latest and greatest speed demon control computer. If you're thinking about upgrading your home one because it's slow now and it's getting old, well, you can make that into your ham shack. You don't need to have the fastest one. Most of the programs are very slow running, don't use much memory, and so therefore you don't need to have a fantastically great system. Furthermore, at the moment, there's a flood of cheap surplus computers available. There's lots of firms now that are buying up computers from houses where, not houses, businesses where they lease their computer systems, and they're running, say, for 5 years. And after 5 years, the lease company buys them back or has them back and issue another load. So therefore, all them old stations, nothing wrong with them. It's just that they're not any good for the software and as fast enough for running the software of databases and stuff like that. So therefore, they change them. So, but you can dedicate any of these old computers and running your login software and monitoring an APRS site, so not to tie up your main computer. It's like now I've got my one here, but I've also got one over there, which is an old one, and that runs my stations and everything. I use a Rig Pi station, which I've just explained to David today. It actually went wrong. I've had to get in touch with MFJ out in Yankee Land and order and get a new distro for it, because it was hooked up for some unknown reason, been running months. It was hooked up, couldn't do nothing with it because I was just testing it out so I could probably show it now, but I can't. And it didn't, so I just pulled the plug and of course switched it on. When I tried to put it back on, it just went in a loop, round robin. Couldn't boot, device is wrong. So therefore, okay. So as I say, I using it, it makes it easier to connect my radio to the internet, and from which I can control it from my laptop or my phone. Now, it would have been nice to sit here now and say, well, this is it running, but I can't. It's not running. But there you go. It will be perhaps tomorrow or the next day. Anyway, so it's great to use if you're stuck overnight somewhere in the country, which I used to be. When I used to travel around, my last sort of part-time job I was doing, which is one of the jobs, was driving. A friend of mine knew I was a driver, knew I'd driven abroad, and he gave me an Amazon Land Cruiser, and I was towing boats, caravans, trailers, cars, anything around Europe, really. Didn't go that far out. Went out to Turkey once, Istanbul, but it was great then. I could sit in my car, I'm stuck, and I actually could control my rig. I had to get within somewhere like a internet shop or internet connection, and therefore when I used my 4G, it seemed to run out so quick abroad, but it's not so bad here. Smartphone usage over the 4G network into a router at home was a great advantage. Great if you're in England, but not much good if you're in Europe. Anyway, if you decide to use a computer for the shack, Be aware that the standard interface, which is what I said earlier on, for the ham radio data and the control used to be the old RS-232 serial COM ports. This has now been superseded in favour of USB 2 or 3, whichever one, speed difference between them, but it doesn't make much difference with a ham radio, in which the RS-232 ports are now referred to as virtual legacy ports. Installing a USB-only PC into a ham shack means that you either have to purchase a serial port extension card or use USB to RS-232 converters. The serial port expansion cards likely have fewer compatibility and driver issues, but the USB converters are easier to install. However, more and more radios and accessories are converting just to the USB interfaces. Where are we? Yeah. Which, with COM port speeds ranging 75 up to 115,200 bits per second, with a maximum length of 15-meter cable, USB ports range from 1.5 megabits per second up to 10 gigabytes per second with a maximum length of 5 meters. We're putting our maximum length, but it's just that after that, the signal starts dissipating and you start getting loss of traffic. So therefore, you try to keep them as short as possible. Most radios are only 1 to 2 meters from these devices, so port speed does not make much difference. I myself used a microham microkeyer for my rig for multiple COM ports. But I'm running at 4,800 bits. That's fast enough for any data transfer I want to do. You know what I mean? If you want to be silly and go to silly speeds, then do so. But it doesn't make much difference. You're much better to stick at a nice, steady, slow speed for the computer traffic from the computer to the radio. You can also use a program called COM or COM0Com. I've left the link on there. In case anybody wants to call it. It sets up multiple virtual COM ports. A virtual serial port driver provides a flexible port for creation, management and removal. And you can remove it easy enough. You haven't got to worry about having to uninstall it. It allows testing of software, supports control lines and high-speed data transfer. With this, you can have as many virtual ports as you want. Now, this is the diagram that comes from COM0Com layout, but as you can see there, that's set up. In fact, on there was 9 actual ports. Your first COM port on a computer is COM1. Perhaps you have COM2. That is the old serial port on the back of them. Most of them don't have any now. No actual COM ports. But it's still in the BIOS. It'll still say COM port, show it on a. So that's probably why COM port 1. So therefore you can't have that. But there's nothing to stop you having 2 and 4. And then as you can see, I've got there 200, 300, 201, 301. You can call it anything you like as long as you know what it is. And you can emulate baud rates on both sides. And remember, you've got to set it up for full duplex. So it's gonna talk and answer. So therefore, you need to get that. But that's one good program that I used before I started with the microham microkeyer. Thanks to G8 Oscar Alan supplying it. So no problems at all. So the modes of communications for amateurs. This is easy, isn't it? It's Morse code. You've got analog voice. You've got digital voice. You've got images, text and data. And of course, let's talk about other modes as well. Okay. We use amateurs, we use a variety of voice, text, image and data communication modes over the radio. Generally, new modes can be tested in the amateur radio service, although national regulations may require disclosure of a new mode to permit radio licensed authorities to monitor these transmissions. So if you're good enough to start developing a new mode, then you've got to be careful before you start using it. Encryption, for example, is not generally permitted in the amateur radio service, except for special purpose of satellite vehicle control uplinks. When they send control characters and everything up to a satellite, they can't send it as a long data. They encrypt it, set it, compress it, send it up, and it's then uncompressed, unencrypted within the actual satellite or wherever. The following is a partial list of modes and communication used, where the modes include both modulation types and operating protocols. Morse code. I think most of us know what that is. Radio telegraphy, designed for machine-to-machine communication as a direct on-off keying continuous wave carrier by Morse code symbols. I wonder what they are. Often called amplitude shift keying or ASK, may be considered to be amplitude modulated mode of communications, and is rightly considered the first digital data mode, which I think it was. There was nothing else digital in them days, wasn't it? Because it was either a dot or a dash, which is either an on or an off, isn't it? It's the same sort of thing. Analog voice. Radio technology evolved several methods of analog modulating radio carriers, such as amplitude, frequency, and phase modulation by analog waveforms. The first such analog modulating waveforms applied to radio carriers were the human voice. Signals picked up by the microphone sensors and applied to the carrier waveforms. The resulting analog voice are known today as AM, amplitude modulation, double sideband suppressed carrier. This is I don't know if anybody knows what that is. This is a standard AM, contains a sinusoidal component at the carrier frequency. This is where it gets technical, which does not convey any message information. It is included to create a positive envelope, which allows the modulation by a simple, inexpensive envelope detector. How can you explain that? Let's say you want to send a parcel. So you wrap it all up in a nice bit of paper. You then take it down to the post office. They take it. It's then put onto a van. It's then put onto a truck. It's then taken back to a depot. It's then put back onto another truck, taken to another depot, comes out, and it's unwrapped by you this end. That's exactly what that does. It just wraps up your signal into a little packet, same as TCP/IP on your computers. It wraps it all up and posts it off, and then it's got down the other end, unwrapped, out it comes. So that's what that is. Does sound a lot, but there you go. ISB, independent sideband. That's amplitude modulated single carrier frequency, which is independently modulated by two different modulated signals. One modulator generates only the upper sideband, and the other generates only the lower sideband. That's what that independent sideband is. Bit technical. I don't think many of us use that. It's more the AM SSB, which we're going to now, the single sideband. That's SSB. Compatible sideband transmission, also called amplitude modulation, AME. Not really much to. It's just the amplitude modulation. It's where is it? It's a single-sided RF modulation in which the carrier is deliberately reinserted. Sounds good, doesn't it? But it's basically what it is. It's just AM, and then you go from there. You go to the frequency modulation, FM, and the phase modulation. Quite simple in radio amateur terms. Something that comes out quite simply, but not many of us would use that in any other way. Of course, now you go on to digital voice, which is, where are we? Lost myself. Right, all modes are encode speech into a data stream before transmitting it. So therefore, it's got to be enclosed. As I say, it's just like with the package going onto the back of a lorry. It's all being enclosed into a package before it's then sent down a data stream. And now these are quite a bit more technical minded. It's repurposed public safety equipment from multiple vendors. This APCO P25 is the little PMRs that you get, and they've got all this these radios that come out to us amateurs and stuff like that, and we can then repurpose them and put them into our own frequencies and our own use. That's what that really basically is. Our D-Star is open speculation. This is made by Kenwood and Flex Radio. It's their own sort of vocoder software. They've developed this. It's like Yaesu has WireX. There's lots of other languages, but most of them use that sort of capabilities. VoIP, which is one of the ones, voice over IP. So you can get the telephones that connect to your internet, and therefore you can then dial up and use that phone to talk down the internet to whoever you like. So that's what they call VoIP. DMR, both commercial and public safety equipment for multiple. It uses the different codecs and FSK modulation. Not much about that. System Fusion. This is done by Yaesu. Proprietary vocoder system available. It uses AM, BE, codec, and C4FM modulation. That's all it does. But it's how they have developed a sort of system proprietary to them. 3DV, open source digital video. This is if anybody's into the open source, like we were listening the other day, you've got the open source software. You can write your software and do it yourself. But as we've said before, you've got to be a bit careful, because if you start developing something and you start using it, it could be a bit naughty if you're going against your amateur radio license with the transmission. This is another M17. It's a funny one. This is it's a coding that open source again, digital voice mode based on codec 2, uses 4 FSK. It utilises punctured conventional coding and quadratic permutation paranormals for error control and bit stream reordering. Yes, a good mouthful, but okay, we can get around it. But it's just another source that somebody's developed for encoding and putting out your data stream. Image modes consist of sending either video or still images. Amateur TV, which is also known as the fast scan TV, well, you know what that is. Slow scan TV, SSTV, and the last one will be your faxes, the old fax machine. That's what that was. When that used to dial up and it would convert your document, once you loaded it onto the fax machine, it would convert it into zeros and ones and data stream and all the rest of it. And then out that would then send it down the telephone lines, which would come out to another fax machine at the other end. They would ring, it'd answer, and that would then print it out on a nice bit of paper, exactly what you put in this end. That's what that is. Now we come to text and data. Most amateur digital modes are transmitted by inserting audio into that microphone input of a radio and using an analog scheme, such as amplitude modulation, frequency modulation, or a single-sided modulation. So this is how it transmits the data from one thing to another. Amateur teleprinting over radio, AMTOR, we all know what that is. It's the old teletext machines that have gone out of fashion now, but they were in fashion, and amateurs used to use them all the time. D-Star, digital data, high-speed transmission, but it's data only. There's nothing else. You can't put no other thing down it. Now, HealthScriber, I've not this is Hellscriber. It was all referred to as either Hell or Hell as facsimile-based teleprinter. Again, this is to do with the fax machine. This is how it compresses up the data, ready to send down a telephone line or however it's sending it out. Multi-tone modulation modes. Another one is for text and data. It's another version, MT63 is another version that they use for just compressing that data. It's each individual people, each company that want to manufacture something and they want to sell you it. They might write their own software. And of course, if you buy that item, you've got to use that software with that item, which makes it ludicrous, really. So, as I say, YRX is Yaesu, Kenwood and all that lot use their own one. So it's best to wait, and then you get the free ones coming out, which is cheaper. Multi-frequency shift keying. Now that is, we use that on FSK, FT8. This is the digital software that we're using at the moment. A lot of people use it. I myself use FT8, FT4. And no problems at all. Olivia MFSK is another one, frequency shift keying, and of course JS8. They're all within the modes for when you're using something like WFJTX. They can all different ways, but not so many people are using the JT6M or JT65. They really go into the FT8, FT4 and running out that way. Packet radio, amateur radio, packet radio network, and the APRS, amateur packet reporting system. If you go back to the old times when it was PACRAT and Amtor radio, packet radio, they used to be good. I used to do it, but it becomes so technical. I used to have the old RS232 interface and used to love it. But of course, it just sort of died. It's coming back again because what they're doing is they're putting contesting on in RTTY and stuff like that. So therefore, that's coming back a little bit. Not a lot, but it is a little bit. But it's very hard to get back into, I must admit, myself. Phase shift keying. PSK, QPSK, these are just different modes, different speeds of what you can actually phase shift key in. Very, very, very good, but it's not something I've been into, but it is there. And the last one would be frequency shift keying, which is the radio RTTY, frequency shift keying. That's what a lot of them use. It's not dying, but it's not really one of the main protocols now. Other modes, of course, you've got spread spectrum, which may be analog or digital, and is spreading of a signal over a wide bandwidth. Now, you must have heard it. The Russians were using it for how long? And I don't know how they got away with it for so long, because they said that it weren't them. And then, of course, the last but not least, you've got high-speed multimedia radio. Networking using 802.11 protocols. There's now 803.11 protocol. It's coming up all the time. All different protocols that you can use for sending out data or receiving data. That's the main thing. Okay, so now let's get back to basics. We now rely on the information technology for our entertainment, communication, and a variety of day-to-day functions. Most national economies are enmeshed in information technology. Whatever you get, it's like the FTSE, it's like in London, all the businesses, all the hubs and everything that go on. And when the Twin Towers in New York got destroyed, look how it crashed around the markets because they were all being used by information by the IT departments. IT has improved government communications and information sharing. Well, if you remember, the IT net was originally brought up by the Yanks to, in case they were going to be bombarded by Russia, and they needed some way of keeping contact between the silos around the states, all around the states, the silos for the bunkers and the nuclear weapon to keep in contact. Because one of the things that they were saying, that if they destroyed the telephone communications, they'd be knackered. So they'd have to have some other way, which is why the internet was actually, or the network was actually developed by the American government, and it still belongs to the American people, which if you go out to America, you don't normally pay for any internet access because it's free, because it's yours, it's theirs. It made it a lot easier for us around the world communications. Us being amateur radios, it makes it easier for us to talk, to somebody around the world using different programs that they supply now, Skype and stuff like that. You can talk to whoever you like, as long as you've got an internet connections. So therefore, IT-enabled activities for the people, conversations via phones and cell phones, video communications. For us, it's the radio communications, but also in the e-commerce during radio communications is one of the great things. And then you've got messaging via email and text messages. Don't you see them on their phones all the time? It's just one of them things that has taken off, and it's never gonna stop. I don't think, never. Where are we? IT-enabled activities. So what do we use? What do you use? I know what I do. I surf the web. I'm listening to a radio if I want to. You can put on loads and loads of radio stations. Again, downloading of the MP3 files, any music and stuff like that. We can have our radio QSOs across the internet. I quite often talk to Alan, Oscar, up in Norwich, up there near you, and we converse over Skype. Sometimes after the meeting on a Wednesday night, we straight away get on Skype and probably talking for another couple of hours, rabbiting away against nothing, but at least it's there. And I can't get him via my radio. That's the worst thing about it. I can see above him, I can see across him, I can go out to Holland and Belgium, this, that, and the other. But that cannot talk to Alan or get in touch with Alan phone-wise. But anyway, that's a different story. We'll talk that out later. Watching TV. You can get a TV. What is it? BT Sport. You can have BT Sport on there, and they'll give you all the latest stuff, and you watch games and stuff like that. Playing interactive games. As I say, my grandson loves it, and they're always buying new stuff. I did already say about buying an airline ticket. You can go onto the website of an agent, a holiday agent, and book all your stuff in. You don't even have to talk to anybody. It's all there. You can just put your details in and away you go. Books, again, you can get from the library or anywhere. Nowadays, you've got bookshops. They're doing more online than they do you walking into a shop. They have less footwear into their shops than they do on the internet. And it's giving plenty of work for the post office and God knows what else, and these couriers. Everybody's making something out of it. You can check with Jim, the weather forecast, or any of the news. Our logging programs. Sorry, I forgot about that. Yeah, our logging programs. We use, as I say, I do, N1MM logger. I've got mine in. I use it all the time, no problems whatsoever. Then you can go to your weather forecast and news. I do it. Must be loads of people do it. As long as you've got a secure system, you don't mind it. Electronic banking. Lucky enough, most banks nowadays give two-factor logging on. So although you might have a password, you've also got to have some other factor going in, whether it's a text comes onto your phone and you have to answer it or whatever. But there's two-point control on that. No problems at all. Invested in the stock market. I can't say too much, but I know my son, he's playing on the internet, all on the stock market all the time. And I can't say too much, but I know he does earn what he wants to earn, but it's something that he does. And of course, most people around the world must do it. All these stock markets all talk to each other and whatever. And one of the things that was in the news, I don't know if you noticed, because of Brexit, the fishmongers down in a Devon place, I can't remember the actual place, have now set up their own program, and they're now using it to sell their fish. And of course, they're making millions out of it, or thousands at it, and they're beating the Brexit because the people abroad are buying it, and they're not having to come over here to go to a market to do a bidding or anything like that. They bid online, get it, and it's shipped out to them. So much better for them. Lastly, on that, internet meeting, like ours now, using it for Zoom and stuff like that, makes life a lot easier than, I say it's probably easier for us, but not for David or Tammy. And it was nice to have the meetings at the school. Admittedly, I only attended one. And then it all went down into lockdown, but at least I was up there and saw a few people with Alan. And, I miss that sort of thing. I used to attend out my radio club down this end of the woods religiously. But unfortunately, no more do I attend any of my local ones. We won't go into that, but that's there. Okay, now then, all our activities that we use the IP phone systems. You don't realise you're doing it half the time, but when you've got a smartphone, that's what you're using. Sometimes you have what's called a Wi-Fi call, a Wi-Fi. So therefore, you connect to your home Wi-Fi, and which then goes out onto the internet. Of course, your phone now is using that internet connection to make the phone call. It's what's happening. It's the latest thing. That's not VoIP. VoIP is actually having a telephone VoIP system. That is actually a dedicated VoIP system, voice over IP, that you use. Lots of companies were pushing them a few years ago, not so much now because of the smartphones. This is the best one. All your messaging, email and text messages. Most of the work you do nowadays, you're putting across on an email, and you're receiving text messages, so things can be sorted out. Personal websites. I've got mine, G6PWS.co.uk. That's there. Gives you a bit of story about me, this, that, and the other. I wrote it, no problems at all. Plus, I've written lots of other websites for different people, my friends around here that have got their own businesses and stuff like that. So I've done it for them, no problems at all. Electronic courses. The Open University, of course, put out a lot. All right, you've got to pay for it, but it's there, and you can take the courses and you can get your credentials and certificates for doing it. No problems at all. A lot of people use an online calendar. I don't. I use it on my phone, but very, very regular. I've got a written one, which is here, which is much better, I find. And, makes it easier for me to update and God knows what else. So that's a lot better. Working from home, loving it at the moment, aren't they? Lots of people don't want to go back. They've got offices now in London that are virtually empty because nobody is going into work. They're all working from home, which you can do on a computer as long as it's that sort of work. I can't really see the industrial side of it working from home because for me to bring home, say, a car and sit it in here and break it all down and repair it or something and this, that and the other, no, I don't think so. But the sort of things you can do on a computer, bang, that's it. Electronic meetings and classrooms. That's what we're doing now. We've got an electronic meeting. It's a classroom. I'm not teaching you really very much, but you might get something you're learning out of this. Even if it's just how to use something. It's some way of giving some sort of information. It's even better than the library information services you can go onto it and you can get like, what's the program? Wiki. You can go onto Wiki and search for anything. That's a massive library. And the best thing about it is you can, if you see something on there, you can go onto that, edit it, and you can put in your bits and pieces on there to add to that information that's in there. So it becomes a massive library system. I think it's very good for looking up things. Some of them get a little bit over the top, but most of them are quite easy and very, very good. Online registrations. I registered for my NARC membership this year online. It was much easier to do it, and I paid online, albeit by my backs, by my bank. No problems at all. Online application system, so you can apply for a job, you can send off your CV, stuff like that, and apply, and hopefully you might get the job if you're looking for one. Lucky enough, I don't have to. They don't employ retired persons, not at my age anyway. Payroll and human resources. That's very simple, isn't it? Human resource departments in workplaces. You have to have them now. They didn't used to call it that in sort of my day. You just went in, saw the manager, and you got the job, no problems, right? You're on the payroll, boom, boom. And every week you'd go and collect your little wage packet with me. What did I? My first one was, I think, first wage packet I got was £14 for a hard week's work, and I mean it was a hard week's work just after I left school, and you just go sort of. You didn't see anybody that would come and ask you, you doing all right? How you getting on, this, that, and the other? Is there anything you need? And God knows what else. But there you go. That's how life changes, isn't it? Okay, so for businesses, comes a little bit more integrated. You've got the call centres. You all must be bugged and fed up with getting these calls, but they're doing a job. They've got a job. And unfortunately, they're cold calling a lot of people. That's one way. And the other way is that you might have a problem and the company has got a call centre which you call and you talk to. Sometimes nowadays it's a machine that just goes through a list, or you go on to an agent where you talk to them and all they can do is go through their little list of answers and know what to say, and then perhaps put you through to their manager or put you further up the line or anything. But they're the point of contact, because the actual person that wants to actually answer your question doesn't want to be disturbed by thousands of phone calls. He'd rather have it all sort of filtered out so they only get what they want. The rest of it is all answered, which is, in certain times, there's ways that the first phone call you make could be that you get to that person and they've got the answer for you. And if you notice, there's a lot of it now where you're going onto some of the sites and they come up with a little chat to somebody now. Now, you can either go onto an online agent or it's a bod. It's a bod, which is just basically a series of answers that you type in what you want and it'll go down its list and find out the nearest reply and bang, up that comes. To me, that's a load of rubbish. But lots of people find it okay. Me, I don't. Electronic transactions with suppliers. This is for businesses. All the supermarkets now on the till sales, because I used to put in tills as well, with computerised point of sales. And as you sell the item, it's going onto the server or the system within the store. That then goes off to the major store with the warehouse. And that bit that you've just bought, once they get to a certain number, it could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 20, it could be 100. It all depends how many they've got in stock. But once you get that certain amount, bang, it'll order that and it'll go through the chain and it will be delivered to the supermarket back. So it's already done. Online sales, same thing. They're selling you. It's all these companies you go to. They sell their wares because you go onto their site, pick what you want, go to the basket, check out, bang, you've got it being sent to you or however you get it, or you can go and collect it. Point of sale, I've just said that. Point of sale devices and networks, That's really the electronic transactions with suppliers. It's basically the same thing. Point of sale is a special software that you can use, like if you go in a pub and he's got a touch screen there and he just touches up the screen and on comes all the information. He just presses the right buttons, bang, gives you how much you got to pay. You pay the man and that's it, or the lady, and away you go. The same with this is the customer transaction servers, same sort of thing. It's you're as a customer can go into the company and you've got your account with them, and you can then go onto your account. You can look through their list of what they're selling, and you can point what you want, click it, and that's it. You can get what as you want, order it. Internal computer networks. This is basically, it used to be a LAN, local area network, where you had a small office. They would have a small, like a NAS box, network attached storage box, and that would be just for that office. But then on come the internet, so all of a sudden you, as a governor or something, wanted to check up what's happening back at the office, how you're doing, how the sales you're doing, or what's going on. They wanted to come in on the internet. So therefore, from a local internet, the LAN, it became a WAN, wide area network. And so you were out onto the internet, going everywhere, which become the internal corporate websites. Again, it's like instead of a private website, you've got corporate ones where you might have the head office. Let's make a point. Yaesu have got their main office in Japan. They've got satellite offices all around the world. So therefore, that's all their website. Video conferencing. What are we doing now? It's quite simple, but companies do this as well. They'll have, we used to do it at ITNet for Hertfordshire County Council, where 4 or 5 of us would go into the meeting, and on the table would be a camera with the microphones and everything, and you could have a meeting with, say, we used to do it with Sims Inline Management Services, and also with RM Computers down at Abingdon, where we would have because we would discuss what we're looking for next year for our budget to spend on the IT equipment. You could talk to them and come to some arrangement and do a lot more than what it was travelling down to Abingdon all the time just to go and see them. Phone systems, cell phones and voicemail. That's what basically business are doing, as well as us as the private people. The messaging, email and text messaging, same as us. It's being for businesses. They're running a businesses like it. Factory floor systems. As you know, there's big companies and they've got, whereas they used to have 100 staff in the warehouse, they've probably only got 4 or 5 now. It's all done by computer systems, whereas that will drive the fork truck to get the items off the shelf, to put them down onto the conveyor belt, which will send it out to the truck, which will go off and deliver it. So that makes it a lot easier. Inventory tracking systems, you've got to have that. The computer, because of a company and you've got thousands of items in your stock, this, that and the other, you've got to keep some sort of idea of what's going on. And your reorder date, you reorder level and stuff like that. You need to know how many you've sold, how many you think you're going to sell, how much you're going to order, how low your stock gets before you do a reorder. So that all has to be on this inventory tracking system. Customer databases. How many companies want you to sign up? Give all your information to them so that they can then text you or email you with all their latest offers and stuff like that. So they all develop a customer database. I had a friend of mine that worked in St Albans for a motor company who made up a motor workshop so that people signed up for this motor workshop and they went in, and perhaps 2 evenings a week, he might just go through, maintenance and this, that, and the other on a vehicle, and how to do this, how to do that, and all these people would attend. Well, what they didn't know is, because they were signing up, and before days of data communication, data protectives, he was making this fantastic customer database up and selling it. And without going any more, he was making quite a bit of money out of selling this customer database until the Data Protection Act come in. Then it all had to stop. But there you go. It still sold it. And you can actually get in touch with any company that's got any of your details and just send them an email or a text, or mainly an email because you've got a copy of it, asking them to completely remove all your details from their database. And they've got to do that. Although it might not, it might not be straight away, but they've got to do it under the Data Protection Act. That's what they've got to do. And then, of course, you come back to the Payroll and Human Resources Department. That always uses all the internet for it. So, that's basically for the businesses. Now we get for your government and us. What can we do? Well, they do electronic voting systems. I can not say that I've ever used any electronic voting systems in this country, but I have done abroad, out in Germany, when I had a bank account with the Deutsche Bank. Because of travelling abroad, it was easy to have a Deutsche Bank account to do any buying of any goods or any diesel or anything. So therefore, and I then voted on their system, which was simply a key press. It was one of three keys. You had to press A, B, or C just to vote the board of directors. Was I interested? No, but at least I made my vote. That was it. Electronic motor vehicle registration and tax. I do it all the time. I do my tax on the vehicle and everything all online. I don't bother trying to go to a post office and paying my tax or anything like that. It's all done. If I was self-employed, I'd be doing my tax, be filing my tax report, the HMRC. Hey, don't know why I've got that twice, but I've got it twice. Sorry about that. Social Security transactions. If you get in touch with what's that, Department of Work and Pensions, which I've had to do lately for a friend of mine, get in touch with them. Although you ring the number and you go ringing all day, and it will just, when they do answer, you'll go through a 1 for this, 2 for that, 5 for that, 1 for this, put in your date of birth, and then click. They disappear. But anyway, that's another story. Right. Information dissemination. Now, that's it means that when you got your information and you want to distribute it to a lot of people, it's the facts that are distributed to the public. So therefore, like was it David? He with the newsletter, he can then send that newsletter to all us that are registered as amateur radio, as members of the club. So it means you can dish oral or visual communications. So you're used to distribute the information followed by a written communication normally, which is what they say. So all means of communication stem from these basic means, information dissemination. So I can talk to you now and tell you what's happening and God knows what else. But then I can also send you this document to tell you what I've told you and this, that, and the other. So that's what that basically means. Where are we going now? We're going to, government functions. Military information systems. Well, we all know what that is, don't we? That's they can one silo can talk to another silo and say, "You're going to send your rocket off?" Yeah, I suppose so. I'll send it. But then again, lots of different things on that. I wouldn't like to go too much into the military side of it, but that's what the government uses. Here's a good one: CCTV. You must have it all round your towns up your way. It's going worldwide, well, countrywide now. They can track where you've been. I don't know if anybody watches. There is a TV program that I was watching, proof of something, moment of proof or something, where they've followed this guy all over the country via the CCTVs and the camera network all around the country. They could see you all the time. And it's not just the speed cameras. There are also on top of lots of light poles. There's little cameras on top of them and all that look at everything. Going into St Albans, where I live, every main road going into it has got a camera, just as you're going into the city centre. So they know who's come in and they know who's going out. There's not much you can do about it. Parking as well, it's another thing. They get you in the car parks. You drive in there, they've got you, and then they'll know when you drive out. So if you overstay your 2 hours or 3 hours, they can send you a parking ticket, of which you're obliged to pay. You can't get away with it, unfortunately. Some people try, but don't help. Intelligent networks. Again, this is to do with MFI, MI6 and stuff like that, intelligence. But not only that, they got other bits and pieces that are used to get information to different departments all round, like the council offices, stuff like that. They're all to do with government, and they talk to all the departments are supposed to talk to each other. It's while the internet and online social networks are positively social communications and economic opportunities. That's where the very because of because of crime, you're getting scammers and stuff like that. They are now making up the new rules and everything for the networks to try and stop all these operations coming into system. It's like cybercrime. That's the word I'm trying to think of. Cybercrime. They're trying to put pay to that. Air traffic control systems, as you know, down here or down in Southampton, they got the air traffic controllers. A friend of mine who lives in Duxford, he was a senior air traffic controller at Luton and at Southampton. Unfortunately, got a detached retina, so it stopped his work there. So, but he took me into the underground, the new one at West Drayton, and also the hidden one down at Southampton as well for the air traffic controllers. Very, very good systems they have, and I can't say they're infallible, but they do work and they're good. Internal information network, the phone system, that's within the government. As you know, they send out text messages to each other about parties going on in different places. That's the sort of thing. They're internal information networks and phone systems. National Police database, very, very good system, and it's used for identifying criminals up and down the country from different police forces. Not 100% used yet because people don't want to have these identification cards. I think the MPs are mostly against it, where you can have an identity card, like they do in all the foreign countries, European countries and everything. You have an identity card, so they ask you, who are you? You can say, that's who I am. That's your complete identity done. But they don't want it in this country. So unfortunately, the National Police database is only like, I think it's about 18%. It's not good enough. It's not like over 50%, put it that way. Okay, so here we go. We're going now to any jobs. Now, when I made this information sheet, this was sort of more put to trying to get sixth and upper sixth school pupils information about their jobs, how to get them. So this is sort of really looking at what security jobs you can get. So if you're in an information security job, it's implementing a test and intrusion detection systems, IDS, configure firewalls, that's to stop them, implement encryption technology, and perform the security audits. Security audits in the computer in the business is that you don't want anybody coming into your machines and going onto your main data frame and getting the information or destroying the information. When I also worked as an IT field engineer, and I had to go into the Ford tractor plant at Basildon. And it was just after they were taken over by Fiat's. Ford tractors still, but Fiat's took them over. And it was just after the new year, went in there, and they called me in there. It was in the first week going in there. And they said that nobody could log in. Nobody could get onto their system. I went in there and found that the whole of the system had been deleted. What they've done is taken all the indexes off. The actual system was still lucky enough in there, but unfortunately for the bloke that done it, who was a leaver, who was getting made redundant because they didn't want him, Fiat didn't want him. What he did is him and his friend made a little program up and wrote it and put it onto a floppy drive, which is them days, which there was, on a workstation that run at a certain time, which I think was, I can't remember, 11:45 on New Year's Eve, which what it did is it deleted all the files. But unfortunately for him, what you don't realise is people like me can read what's in the memory, and I downloaded the memory off of that station, and it told me exactly what he'd done, who he was, what time he put the floppy disk in and started the program off, and so forth. They got him. And of course, the only thing it is everybody knows, if you just delete a file, you're not deleting that file. What you're doing is you're just taking off the first character off the index, and that then doesn't be presented because the character has been put as a $sign. But people like me can go through with some special software or with coding and recover all that lot. And lucky enough, after nearly a week and a half, we recovered nearly everything. And what it contained was all their drawings and everything for the tractors. So they were well pleased. But the bloke, I think, got 18 months. The actual guy that did it, he thought he got away with it, but there you go. Okay. So now then, computer IT analyst, what do? They translate business requirements into a technical specification. That sounds good, doesn't it? So if you want an item that you're selling and you want it put on the internet, somebody's got to give all the technical information to put that onto the internet for sale. You can't just put, here's a bag of sweets, boom. You've got to say, what the size of it is and all the other relevant details that you need to put on there to get people to buy it. Work with business units to document requirements. Again, same thing. You've got 5 or 6 different units around your company, and you've got to get all together so that you can document in one sort of document what the requirements are for that business to run perfectly. When you're an IT analyst, you've got a program, and you have to sort of set the guidelines up as to what your company needs, how it's got to be input, and what information you've got to get back off it. So that's the requirements you need. You need to document that, and sometimes they make up an IT reference manual. Support the end users of desktop applications. So you're the help desk. Basically, if you're in a company, they're going to ring you up and say, right, can't log in, my password's expired, or I've lost my password or something like that. You've got to go down, or the printer's not working, or the keyboard's not working. They send you all them different, so you've got to support them and all that stuff. Train employees to actually use these systems. You've got to, nobody can just walk into a company and say, right, that's it, I know what I'm doing, I can use this. You have to train them to use your network and your systems. So basically, I've gone into that help desk. That's the support end user, which is really the help desk. That's mainly what it is. Administration. You've got to install and manage that network. Some companies have installation companies that come in and install all their networks and stuff like that. So you just sit and manage it. Sometimes you've got to say, right, well, they're going to convert that office down the road or that little room down the road. They're going to convert that to be a control center. So therefore, you've got to go in and you've got to install the network, which would be workstations, printers and stuff like that. You've got to put them all onto your local network. This would be all local. If you were going to go for a big business, a wide area network, that's normally handled at that end, at the main office. All they do is they get everything ready in the little office, bag it all up or box it all up, send it out to that place. It's all then installed by their people. Bang. It all should work straight away. I say all should. We've had trouble when it's not. Provide direct end user support. Again, same thing, the help desk. You've got to provide, because you might have a satellite station in the middle of nowhere. You don't want to be traveling all the time back and forth to it. What you want to do is to be able to get them to ring you or get in touch with you, and you can say, right, okay, this is how you do it. That's how you do it, which is the troubleshoot and fix network problems. I used to go out, and I had a fantastic one where I had to go all the way up to Lincoln to the theatre up there, and the girl in the ticket office had lost printable, so she couldn't print out her tickets on the ticket machine. So I went up there and I looked around, and of course you have a set way of looking at things. And what I did look at first of all was that she'd got a seat that had got casters with a small carpet, and I could see this little ridge underneath under the carpet, and you could see where she'd been rolling back and forth on her seat, you know, moving it back and forth like I can on my one here now. And when I thought, okay, I'll have a look at this, so I had to cut into the carpet, because it was a fitted carpet all around the office, cut a nice slit in it, and found that the network cable was just underneath her caster, and where she'd been back and forth, crushed it. And eventually it broke it. So therefore, all I had to do was to whip the cable out, put a whole new cable in, but round the office instead of underneath her feet. And then I said, well, sorry, the carpet, you'll have to get them sorted out. Nothing to do with me. All I've done is fix your network problem. That was that. So I got away with it anyway. You can perform hardware and software upgrades. That's dead simple, isn't it? You know, you add a bit there, update your video card, update your hard drive, and software is all the time being done. In fact, with Microsoft Windows 10, they're updating it every other day. I've got, I dare say Sunny must know as well, we got Flight Simulator and Microsoft Flight Simulator. And whenever you start it, you could be half an hour getting into the program it starts, or it's going to be 2 or 3 hours because it does a mandatory update. There's nothing you could do about it. It just does it. So that's Microsoft for you. Lovely people they are, really. I'm saying no more. Certifications are often required. Okay, so if you're a network like I was an MS or an MSAA and MSNA, Network Administrator. I was an NSA, Systems Administrator, but that was on NT4. I don't know if anybody can remember that, NT3, and then NT3 and NT4, which was the first like Microsoft networking systems. Great. But if I then progressed to Windows XP, I had to retake all them certifications to become a Microsoft networking engineer. And I thought, well, after the third one, and then you have to take a week's course up at Microsoft in Reading, and I just couldn't believe it. I just didn't do it anymore. So I was not, once I'd got that first certification, whenever I went, well, as I'd been working for ITnet in Berkshire County Council, they accepted my certifications as they were, no problems at all. So I didn't have to bother about any other. Every year having to renew them. Okay, so we go to computer forensics. Detect and help prosecute IT crimes. So detection of IT crimes, well, cybercrime, what we talked about earlier. What's happening nowadays? I don't know if anybody else does it, but any email I get that's coming to me for phishing or trying to get me to click on this link that I don't know about, or I can look at it. I can look at the text and the format of an email before I look at it on my computer. And if I see anything that I'm not sure of, I send it to this phishing site in London, the government. It's a government site. I send it to them, and they thank me very much for reporting these sites, because they do check them out, and most times they're taken off. The trouble is most of them being foreigners. Well, you can always tell by the spelling. Most of them are foreigners, and of course they can't do much except block that IT coming across. So, and that's where the next bit comes in. You determine whether that information that you're getting has been deleted or modified. That's what I did down at the Fiat factory, or Ford's at Basildon, when I went in there. I found out that it had been deleted or modified. Yes, it had been modified. In other words, taken off the index. Once the index gone, you couldn't see it, but I could. And that's where the next bit comes in. I recover all that deleted information. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. I had one guy, a school teacher, come in. It took me 3 days to get all his information back off his hard drive. And that was because he clicked on a scamming link, which threw a virus into his computer, which after 5 or 6 days, so many key presses, it then went into motion, give itself a nice name, I Am Killer, and it went through his files from Z to A, deleting everything. Of course, he come to me in tears, because he'd got years and years of work on there. He was a school teacher, years and years of work on there from the kids and pictures and stuff he'd done. So he was in tears, but he was kissing me by the time I'd finished. They trace and locate sources of transmitted or stored material. That's called IP hopping. You can go back, whatever electronic stuff that you get transmitted to you has got an email address, or it's got an IP address where it's come from and where it's going to. Transport Communication Protocol is the same as describing it each time. What happens is that you transmit this bit of information. It's put in a brown paper bag on the back of a truck, and that's your IP. That's your information protocol, your IP address. That then is taken wherever it's taken to and delivered. So it's got a place, a point of entry and a point of departure. And you can trace that from one end to the other, no problems whatsoever. They can't hide that. That's one thing they can't do. Even with a VPN, virtual private network, which they're advertising, they're trying to get now, everybody to get, because, you know, you see the advert on the telly where there's a woman walking along with a good credit card in the air saying everybody can see your credit card. If you put a VPN, it makes no difference with your credit card. Absolutely no difference at all. If they've seen that data, they've got it. But what it boils down to is people are trying to hide behind the VPN to get other people's information, which is what they're trying. But unfortunately, it is still traceable. Whatever happens, there's a route. It's like having a wire going from the place where it started, initiated, to the place it finishes. That can be followed exactly right the way through, no problems at all. Which is, that's that one. Search enormous stores of data of evidence. So they've got databases full, that's what I said, the Police National Database. But there's also a database where everything in the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, is put onto a database. I had a friend who's just unfortunately gone, who had a company which big companies were sending in their transactional data, the paperwork with all the invoices and all the stuff. He was putting them through his scanners, digitizing it all, putting it onto DVDs or onto a storage area on a hard drive. So therefore, that's how they can get all their information. So rather than have rooms full of boxes of all paperwork and books and stuff, they would have it all stored up in digitally. And the last on that one would be you can serve as an expert witness in a courtroom if you've devised all this lot. Okay, so basically, information technology in theory, we've introduced to the IT concepts. I've explained some computational methods of IT and explored some social issues in IT. Information, as we know, is represented in 4 ways: text, numbers, images, including video and sound. IT hardware and software can capture, process, exchange, store, present various types of information, using electromagnetic energy. Cutting-edge IT trends include technologies that are secure, high-speed, interoperable, mobile, small, and user-controlled. IT is growing very, very fast. Okay, thank you. Thanks for watching and listening. And if there's any questions, please feel free to ask. I can answer as many as you want me to, as long as you don't go on too long, because I have rabbit in it.
That's all right.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Okay.
Bob. I think we're getting us back on here somewhere. Oh, yeah, there we go.
That's it.
All right. Thank you very much. We haven't had so many questions or anything yet, although we did have a few comments earlier on, particularly from Richard M6 UES. It's quite a while ago now, I have to say. It's just gone 8 o'clock. He says, agree, we almost seem to have forgotten that the primary purpose of a phone was originally to make a phone call. Nowadays, they almost seem to be used for everything, good or bad, I guess that is. And Ralph 2M0RHT replied to that and said, yeah, a telephone's a telephone, a mic's for radio, a key is for CW, and they put them all together and we've got a new science. That's what he said.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to ask you is just interest, and we ought to tell everybody now as well that we're hoping you're going to come back and do a talk specifically on hard disks and on replacing hard disks in computers, in laptops or desktop computers, because with SSDs, solid state devices, because they're solid state storage rather, which does make them a lot faster and can really improve, isn't it? But one thing I was going to ask, with the solid state device, can you also retrieve information off them, or are they more secure if someone tries to delete everything on them?
No. If it's made up as a hard drive, it's been formatted to a certain format, and even with that, unless you low-level format that drive, the information is still there. It can be recovered. Same with on a phone. People, the police get phones in that people have tried to destroy, and they take them into the forensic office, and that's where they're ripped apart, as we could say, and therefore they can get into the memory chip, and they just can read that memory chip. I've got a little program that will read all the messages and all the stuff on my phone. Plus, I've used it to upload other people's phones, bought all their stuff off, and I can transfer it over onto their new phone. But no, it's anything can be, as long as it's not been. If you've deleted something now, and say in a week's time you come back, oh, I didn't want to delete that, I need to recover it. If you've used that hard drive and overwritten that spot, then of course you can't get it back. But if you haven't, like because most hard drives, it takes quite a while to fill up different data segments, so you can normally recover it. Even if I've had somebody where I've only half recovered the file, half a picture. But half a document, something like that. But at least they've got half of it, and you can, forensically, they can find anything like that. No problems at all.
Yes, I wasn't thinking of it for any really nasty purposes, but I'm sure all of us at some point have wanted to dispose of a computer when it really hasn't got any more use, whether you're going to sell it or whether you're just going to put it on the dump. But of course, you're worried about what's on there. So that low-level format you talked about, then that's where you can write. I know I've done it on some of my hard drives. You've written noughts ones across the whole thing.
Yeah, you write. First of all, you write a series of noughts, then you write a series of Fs, FFFFs or ones, whichever you like. I call it the FFFFF, which is the last character. Zeros is the first character. But you write a series of all the way through, and it probably does it twice just to make sure. But that is its low-level format. It takes a long time to do it because it's got to write to every sector, every byte, but it's done. You can then get rid of it. A lot of people say no, they just pull the hard drive out, drill through it, or hit it with a hammer or something like that. But it's easier for me if I've got a hard drive. I know that, like, people donate their systems to me. If I'm supplying them with a new system here, and they bring their old system into me, which I've got one sitting right by the side of me now, which I'm doing. They want their hard drive completely, so I take all their data off it, make an image for them to have, but then I'll low level it, and it will probably take 6-7 hours to low level format a 500 gig hard drive. But at least they're secure then. There's none of their data on it.
Sure. Okay. Well, we haven't got any more questions or comments now. And
I've bored everybody. They're all asleep.
Not at all, but I think it is obviously it's getting quite a while. It's been over a couple of hours now. The program,
yeah.
So, but we look forward to you coming back and talking just specifically, I think, about the practical aspects of how a hard disk works, and then an SSD, and then how maybe you can show us how we can replace an SSD and how difficult that is or not in a computer. That would be lovely, and we'll maybe do that next month or so. But Bob, thank you ever so much for tonight's talk. I think we're more up to date on IT and all of the things that encompasses, and especially, of course, to the radio amateur.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Bob.
I'll try my best. Okay, thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you very much.
All right. Good night, all.
Thank you. And we hope that might have inspired you as well, because as I've asked many times, we really do need some other talks to fill our program. You know, Roger, our program secretary, does book talks every other week generally, but we need to find some interesting things, and it'd be lovely to come to people like Bob and like you at home as well now, to give us a talk on something that you know about that might be of interest to other radio amateurs. So we'd love to hear from you. But that's about it for this week. Thanks once again to Bob, G6PWS, for his talk. Just to remind you again what's happening on the club this week. On Sunday, the 16th of January, we've got the GB2RS News on GB3MB. On Monday, the 17th of January, it's the Monday Night Net with Tim, M1MIT at 7:30. At 8:30, the 80-metre CW Net on 3.543 megahertz. And next Wednesday, here on NARC Live, Ferrites and Balance with Kevin and Nassan N4XL. A really useful subject to know about if you've got any problems at all in your shack with interference. Be a really good one to look at. Plus, of course, send us your stories and your news and those guesses on that mystery object as well to radio@dcpmicro.com by 3 o'clock on Wednesdays, please. But that's it for now. Thank you very much indeed, and we wish you a good week until next week on NARC Live. So from Tammy M0TC.
Goodbye.
And from me, David G7URP. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.